am Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream. Today, why are so many U.S. college students homeless?
We'll chat with students and advocates about what is being done to address the problem.
And of course, we want to hear your thoughts. Tweet us at AJStream or leave your comments in our live YouTube chat, and you too could be in the stream.
I slept in my car, and I slept on my boss's couch. I was very, I just didn't know what to do. I don't have anyone here.
For many people, college is the door to a better opportunity, but that opportunity doesn't always come with a roof and four walls. According to the US Department of Education, in 2017, there were an estimated 32,000 homeless college students in the United States. So what is being done, if anything, to address the issue?
Well, here in our studio to discuss this, Dejanae Day. She's a recent graduate of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Sara Goldrick-Rab, she's a professor of higher education policy at Temple University and founder of the Hope Center for College, Community, and Justice. Barbara Duffield, she's the executive director for Schoolhouse Connection, a leading nonprofit working to eradicate student homelessness. And joining via Skype from Chicago, Illinois, Dominique Cornell, a student at DePaul University. Welcome everyone to the stream.
Hello, it's really good to have you. I'm going to start on Dom's Instagram account. I have checked ahead of time, so I won't embarrass him. I'm just going to scroll down here so we can have a look. Nice shots, smiley, smiley, beautiful locations, very nice. Dom, you would not know from your Instagram account, from your social platforms, without looking a little bit closer, that you're a student who's studying and you don't have a definite home to go home to. Can you explain that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that for me is understanding that the perception and I guess the dominant narrative around homelessness is that homeless people aren't smart, homeless people are dirty or not capable of achieving or contributing to society. And I really, now I'm being more vocal about my experiences, but I think for me, there was always that underlying sense of shame and, loneliness. It can be kind of lonely. So I didn't want anyone to look at me different. And I want to show people by what I'm capable of achieving and the content of my character that I'm more than just my experiences and more than just a homeless person. I'm so much more than that.
Was there a time when you had to just come out and say, I don't have anywhere to stay tonight, and you were studying? Absolutely.
I've dealt with homelessness my entire life. Losing my parents at a young age, my mother to addiction and my father to incarceration. I say that I was sort of orphaned by the war on drugs, which is the story of many folks around the world. It's the same story of black and brown youth in the south side of Chicago. It's
We're going to reconnect with Dom. He's frozen, literally, because he's in Chicago, Illinois, and it's very cold up there.
Exactly.
But we'll get back to him in just a moment.
Exactly. But picking up on that story, I wanted to share this one from Raisa, a former member of the stream team. And she writes in, a close friend of mine lived in her car for some time in college. She did great in school. She was super outgoing and involved. And so it was hard to notice that she was struggling. She later told us after she found a place to live. But Dejanae, the idea that someone could be struggling and still have a full social life on college and no one else know that they're struggling, how is that?
Basically, with me, I had my eye on the prize. The only thing that I had to look towards to and the only thing I can have in my name is my degree. I earned it, and only with that, only a close member of friends knew about it, and they tried to help me the best way as possible. I tried picking up jobs and everything, but when I got home, I went straight to Promise Place, and they held a spot for me every time, so I didn't really house hop from place to place, but I was residing in a shelter until I graduated.
Promise Place, tell us about that.
Promise Place is a youth shelter in Capitol Heights, Maryland. So basically it houses about 10 boys and 10 girls, ages 14 to 25. So they help with schooling and fast food, just try to get you on the right track, but you have to work hard to get where you need to go. You can't let homelessness take you down.
Sarah, how do you even know that a student who's going to classes, turning up for school, is actually struggling with somewhere to live?
You know, the only way that you know is ask them. I mean, that's the truth, and I think the reason that most people don't know about this problem is they're not asking the questions. We ask students how they spend their time working, and we ask if they're studying, but we don't check on them to make sure they have a roof over their heads. And you'd be surprised how many times a student who is kind of fronting like they have it together.
Did you see Dom's Instagram
That's
account?
exactly right.
He's living his best life on Instagram.
He absolutely is, and he's doing it, as he said, because there are consequences to him not doing that. He will be perceived as not a serious student if he does not present that front. But behind the scenes, the struggle that's going on is undermining their academic performance.
Barbara?
Yeah, I was thinking, Dejanay, what you said about keeping your eye on the prize. I think a lot of people think that because a person is homeless, education would be less important. But in fact, the truth is it makes it more important because it's the way out.
Dom, I'm so glad that you're back with us. Your Skype froze for a minute, but I wanted to give you this tweet we got from Neslihan, who says, "This is not surprising when we hear about public housing places with no hot water or heating, especially in the U.S. 80,000 people in Chicago are sleeping on the streets this winter. Let's examine the causes behind homelessness in the U.S. And students aren't any different from the rest." And so just to give our audience an idea of what people in Chicago are facing right now, I wanted to show this headline from the Chicago Tribune: dangerous deep freeze, weather alert, a running list of everything that's closed in the city of Chicago, which is facing record-breaking low temperatures. Dom, talk to us about what it's like to be a student without a dedicated place to go in a place like that.
Yeah, it is, in a place that is so cold, in a place that, and when I say cold, I don't just mean temperature. I live in the city of Chicago where there are homeless people around every corner. And I think we're so desensitized to that fact that we sort of just hop on over them and, go on to our jobs. But they're just like us. And the reality is that a majority of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency. So we're all close to homelessness. And for me personally, having slept in shelters, in cars, in parks my whole life, it's chilling, no pun intended, but it's scary and it's sad, and sometimes you just have to do things to survive, and you have to keep going, you have to keep getting that degree because it's your only way out of poverty, and not everyone has the opportunity to go to school, so we need to make education a right for all, regardless of income.
Dejanay, how are you juggling getting your education and then also just making sure that you're surviving? Because if you don't have a regular place to stay, also there's food issues as well. Just getting the next meal is a problem.
When I come back home on the Washington, D.C. side, I have a job at Wegmans that I had since high school. So basically, when I come home from school, they held my position. So I have a little bit of change to get food and the necessities needed. So some situations kind of differ, but I kind of had a little tiny bit of stability with money.
Yeah. Sarah?
This is really important because the fact that you were able to have a job provided some help. I think a lot of people assume that homeless college students are homeless because they're not working. And our evidence collected over years and years shows they are. They are getting financial aid and they are working, but the fact is that financial aid pays far less than it used to. Work pays far less than it used to. And so it's possible to be using all these forms of support and still not making ends meet.
I wanted to pick up on the idea of food because some college students are facing so much, and food insecurity is a part of that. So I wanted to show you this. This is from the Chronicle of Higher Education, and this is Frankie. Frankie is a student, and he also represents two-year and technical college students in Minnesota, and he talked to the Stream about the issue he sees as the problem.
My name is Frankie Becerra, and the reason that we are facing homelessness and food insecurity on our campuses is because of the high cost of tuition. Often, students have to make a choice whether they're going to class hungry or they're going to work to pay off their student loans and debt. A student's hardest test should come within the classroom, and right now, our students are being graded on how well they can handle homelessness, food insecurity, and being devoid of basic needs.
So there he talks about, of course, the high cost of tuition. Barbara, how do you go about addressing that? Because that doesn't seem like it's changing anytime soon.
And there are macro issues and there are micro issues. And one of the biggest challenges that we see is, yes, there's the higher cost, that the financial aid doesn't pay for all of the cost of attendance, et cetera. But also for students who are experiencing homelessness, particularly under age 24, just getting financial aid is a challenge. So we see over and over and over again calls from youth who can't document their homelessness, who are being told to go stay in a shelter if one exists, to find evidence of a parental death certificate or of some other documentation of their homelessness in order to get financial aid. So that's one major challenge is just even to be able to get what you are entitled to by virtue of your income. If you're experiencing homelessness and you don't have a parent and you're under age 24, that's a hurdle right there.
Guess what I'm finding really interesting is how many students and then colleges are working out we need to do something. I want to show you something which is the Bruins Shelter, and this is in California, and you can see what some students and a college did to get together and help their students who don't have anywhere to live. Have a look.
I'm senior pastor here at Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Santa Monica, California, and we are the proud host of the brand new Bruins Shelter.
We created Bruins Shelter because we became very aware of a dire need at UCLA. We found that there were a number of students sleeping in odd places on campus.
Bruins Shelter is a place where students, like people who are just like me, who are just trying to get an education, can really do that safely without kind of living in fear for their own safety on top of having to go to school.
Sarah, I'm just beginning to wonder if more and more colleges are realizing how many of their students don't know where they're going to sleep.
I think that there is a growing awareness of colleges, and that's partly because there's been more data generated to help them understand it. But I do want to point out that the Bruins Shelter was not created by UCLA. The Bruins Shelter was created by a student and the student activists, and they did it with their own money. I mean, the student who created that did it by not using money his parents were giving him and putting it aside for other people. These are charitable solutions. They're student generated and they're powerful, but they are not systemic solutions to the problem that we're facing. Right? I mean, we didn't see UCLA decide to create more affordable housing for their students. We didn't see them increase and create a new scholarship program to cover students' housing. Right? We didn't see changes at the state policy level to make it so there were incentives for developers to create affordable housing for low-income students. What we saw were students taking care of each other, which is great, but with the numbers that we're looking at, it's a Band-Aid.
So I wanted to share one story and a few solutions that he tweeted us. This is from Jose Rivera Perez, who says, I came from Puerto Rico to pursue education at Brooklyn College. My first year, I was homeless for a few months. I had no place to live and often had no money to eat. One entire week, I was outside living in the street until someone allowed me to stay in his apartment. I was grateful because at least I was able to find a place to sleep. I slept for 2 years on the floor because this person had no space in his apartment. And he goes on to say, though, as a recommendation for what should happen in future, a way that colleges can start is by their staff being empathetic with individuals having hardship. Often I shared my experience with my professors and staff, but received no empathy for my circumstance. Dejane, can you talk to us about the struggle and the hurdle of making sure that people on campus hear your struggle, and then do something about it?
So basically, I reached out for help. I didn't allow my pride to kind of get to me. It got to me maybe like the first year, but then after a while, I found out that I can go to school for free through a tuition waiver. So I had to reach out to the school, had mentors there helping me out, got a waiver for the housing. So the money for FAFSA too, I got that back, and that was helping me get food and everything.
What changed in that year? What was it about the first year to the second year that you said, I'm actually going to go reach out for help?
I just didn't want to struggle anymore. I just wanted to try to help out other people too, so they know that there's more people. And I know some people too that went through the same stuff, but we all came together kind of and got everything we needed from food. And if we needed laundry detergent, if one of us had it, we helped out and did that. Money for laundry, we helped out with that too.
Dejane, I'm going to show your graduation picture right here. The world is going to see it right now. When you look at that picture, right, there you go. What do you see?
I was so happy. I got through 4 years debt-free. Sally Mae did not get me. I was just so proud of the hurdle that I took, and it was just beyond remarkable. I was actually pregnant with my daughter in that picture. So just to really see me with my cap and gown, I can show everybody that you cannot let anything that happened to you determine your fate.
Sure.
You just have to ask for help if you need it.
Ask for help. You survived. Dom, I'm going to go back to your Instagram account because I love this picture here of you with Bernie Sanders here. He's a US Senator. I'm coupling that, some time ago, coupling that picture with a tweet where he's talking about why, if we can put $700 billion a year into the military, why can't we either lower student debt or make public colleges and universities tuition free? If that actually happened, would we not hear stories like yours and like Dejane's and many other thousands of students who are struggling just to stay in school because they don't have somewhere to stay and they don't have enough food to eat? Would that be a game changer?
Oh, absolutely. And that was a huge reason why I supported Bernie Sanders and why now I support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's initiative and plan to tax the wealthiest in our country, to ensure that all people who want to have a higher education or to learn a trade have the right to do so. And it's not just a privilege for a wealthy few. I think it's essential that we not only stop spending so much in the military, but also, abolish student debt. I mean, we bailed out the banks in 2008 when they crashed our economy with their greed and recklessness. I think it's time for students and young people to get a bailout so that they don't face a debt sentence their entire lives.
Picking up on that, I wanted to share this comment we just got on YouTube. Someone writes in that it's not surprising that college students end up homeless because post-secondary programs price gouge them left and right. It's difficult to maintain affordable housing and living while then keeping up with debt. So one more experience there. But Barbara, I wanted to go to you with a solution, potentially. This is Jose, who I read a little bit earlier. He says, colleges can build partnerships with social service agencies, government human services, businesses, and community-based organizations to connect students with various forms of services, financial help, and good-paying jobs. Do you see that happening?
In places, we definitely do. We see some networks starting. There's a pipeline into college homelessness, and that is high school homelessness. Many students experience homelessness in high school, and there is a system in the K-12 system. You've got a point person, a liaison, who's charged with connecting all the dots between community agencies. That has not been yet translated fully to higher education. So we do see states taking that idea of having a designated liaison or person at institutions of higher education, and they then become the person to connect with community services, to connect with housing, connect with food, and to connect with that pipeline into college homelessness, which is everything that happened before.
Sarah, I'm looking at a picture here of you talking to Trevor Noah from The Daily Show. People can go online and see you doing talks about food insecurity and students and student homelessness. Is this issue, I know you and Barbara, Dejane and Dom are all talking about it right now. Is this issue being talked about enough? Do people know that students are struggling?
It's growing. I mean, I can absolutely tell you that the number of people who are in high-powered, positions of leadership is absolutely growing. The number of programs is growing too. I want to highlight that the Chicago Housing Authority has a remarkable partnership with the City Colleges of Chicago, where they understand that the best way to support people who are currently living in public housing or using vouchers, the best way to support them to really make them economically secure is to help them get through college. And they're doing things, for example, like when a student is living in public housing and they're in the city colleges of Chicago and they've lost their financial aid, maybe because of their grades or because it's timed out, they're stepping up to pay their tuition. I think that's remarkable, and that's a game changer. And we've seen programs like that coming out of Los Angeles and coming out of Tacoma. And so we are seeing some promising practices, and I think we have a long way to go. But to even see the faculty wake up, I get emails every day from faculty who say, we want to do better by students like these, but we don't know how. And you have to tell us where the resources are. You have to help us get trained. And some of them, by the way, say, I'm an adjunct and I live in my car too. And so we have a big problem here, right? This is not going to be a one-off. If these wonderful students are struggling and the people who teach them are also not making a living wage, right? The truth is that public higher education as an entire system is being starved of the resources it needs.
And I would also say too that it's not as though Chicago, Tacoma, Albany, Kennesaw State, UC, the Long Beach, lots of institutions are doing something. So what we're trying to do is to collect those best practices, whether it's identifying students, housing students, community partnerships, student parents, and really collecting those best practices. So that's one piece that we've tried to play, is really so that institutions and communities don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can see what others are doing.
That's right, and we have an active conversation, both Barbara's organization and my organization and others lead an active conversation online at #RealCollege, where those organizations and leaders and whatever talk about the stuff that they're doing, because they're actually kind of invisible too. And the students come in and they say, here's what I need, and another program says, I can do that. And some entrepreneur jumps in and says, I'm willing to find a solution. What we don't have yet, to be honest though, are the folks with the big money. The really wealthy foundations, the really powerful senators, right, who control the committees, they're not yet paying attention, but I promise you they will soon.
Sara, you mentioned big money. Dom, I'll go to you with this, but you mentioned big money, and so it really begs the question that a lot of that big money is going in other directions, but still on college campuses. I wanted to give you an example of this. Art here tweets in, you have our motivation, Sara. From my humble vantage, the causes of this are rising tuition, amenity warfare, and stagnant levels of financial aid, to name a few. And he goes on to explain what amenity warfare is. It refers to newer dorms that have gyms, etc., that have raised the cost of campus housing beyond market rates. Only a good deal in a few major urban markets, and bad when forced to be housed on campus in others. So, Dom, this idea of beautiful, luxurious dorms that have the state-of-the-art equipment, they have gyms, those are the things that some people feel they deserve on college campuses. And here in the U.S., college is often seen as a privilege and not a right. So there are obstacles here that you're up against. How do you tackle those?
I think, and everyone's kind of been talking about this, it's really humanizing the issue and having young people or people struggling in general talking about their experiences, because the fact is this is a hidden crisis, and colleges at the end of the day are a business and don't really want to highlight this, because the fact is homeless students can't always pay their tuition. So I think it's understanding the root causes of homelessness. It's understanding that when healthcare is not a right in this country, and that mental illness, attributes to homelessness so much. When I think about here in Chicago, that Cook County Jail is the largest mental health facility, one of the largest in the country. That is just unconscionable. When I think about how the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration attributes to homelessness. My father was incarcerated, and that just led to me becoming homeless and alone, and that's the case for so many people. It's really understanding that the root causes, and once we have a cultural shift and greater empathy in our society, I think that we can finally change policy.
All right, Dom, I want to give a shout out to DePaul. I've got them here on my laptop because that's one of the organizations that help you have somewhere safe to stay while you're studying. Malika.
I'll end with this. This is for those of you who are watching and might need help. 2 specific resources include local transitional living programs and food pantries. You can call this hotline if you're here in the U.S. And of course, you can tweet them as well.
Thank you, guests. Thank you, viewers, for watching. We'll see you online next time. Take care, everybody.